Thanks for watching The Instant Reaction. For full episodes of the Cannon Podcast, sign up as a YouTube member on this channel or go to patreon.com/thecannonpod. Mikel Arteta's army. We're Arsenal through and through. We'll sing it in the North Bank. And in the welcome back to the Instant Reaction with Alexander Manipani and my very good friend
George V. How we doing, boys? That's a great night. A night of setting records, an incredibly fun night, probably the most fun that we've had all season. It's just wow, just wow, full of attacking flair. Arsenal found a way to, attack again, so to speak. Yeah, we clicked. But wow, mate, I have so much to say. We finally announced ourselves to Europe. There are so many things to get into tonight, so many records. It was amazing. It was amazing. It was an amazing performance.
I think the PSV game was a really fun night, but I think tonight because there was more. I don't know. I think the PSV game we didn't necessarily know what to expect, but I think because we came into this game thinking, Lens were hard to break down last time. It's going to be a bit of a slog tonight, whatever, and then to go out and do that. That is what makes it feel so exciting.
They're one of the best defensive teams in Europe, mate. Like look, I understand it was easy, but we made it look. We were incredible on the night. On the night, this is the best attacking performance that we've seen all season. This was us at our scintillating best. And you know what? I have some very interesting opinions about us in transition in terms of the Champions League long term. And in terms of some of our strengths, because you know what? It reminded me of seeing a Bayern team back in the old day in terms of the quality. You look at like the Declan Rice at DM, and then you look at essentially the speed with which that we counter is just absolutely incredible. Like Arsenal in transition reminded me of the old Bayern teams of Ribéry Robben, that devastating ability to turn an instant into a counterattack and score. It was incredible. And look, it was a 5-10 minute spell where we really saw, kind of Lens break down. And you're not sitting there saying that Arsenal are going to guarantee to win, but we are one of the better teams in the competition. We absolutely have set a record for the first team ever to score 5 goals and a half, and that's not something that you shrink your head at, no matter the opposition. And ironically, despite Lens not performing brilliantly in Ligue 1, they are still one of the best defensive teams in Europe, and it's not something that you would associate. We found how difficult it was in France. And so this does mean something. And, Kai Havertz, the confidence he will take into this, Tomiyasu, the performance is brilliant. And there's so many things that we can get into. I just felt like we should enjoy this. There's going to be so many people there trying to sit there and say, well, don't count your eggs before they hatch. No, enjoy this performance. This was brilliant. Our best one of the season in terms of an attacking sense. Sit there and enjoy a 6-0. They don't come on very often. This isn't something that you're going to regularly see. So sit there and enjoy it.
Yep, 100%. I couldn't agree more. And I think, it's one of those nights where you kind of, of course, there are structural things, but actually, I think there's more of a focus on individuals, and I want to come to all the individuals. I'd like to, at some point in the interaction, go through the whole team and just pick out some performances. But in terms of our attack, that just speaking in terms of a group, that front 5,
first time they played together, mate, all season.
Like is it? Because I was wondering if it was either the first, second, or the third, because it hasn't been much. But is that the first time Havertz, Odegaard, Saka, Jesus Martinelli?
No, I don't think we've seen that yet, have we?
Okay.
Because
well, I'm sure the comments will let us know.
Yeah, somebody double check for me, but I'm pretty sure that we haven't had a chance for all of them. Maybe in
because we've had that midfield and we've had that front 3, but I don't think we've had them together. Yeah. So I so impressive, so impressive, so fluid. I look at Gabby Jesus, man, and no, let's do the individuals later. In terms of the overall performance, I was really, really pleased. That first half, I think we've been waiting for that moment all season. And Mikel spoke about it in his press conference earlier on in the week, saying, when you're stuck in traffic, guys, you can't move. And the moment we get some space, this is why teams sit in low blocks against us. And I know it's so frustrating to watch every weekend against Premier League teams. But I was talking about this recently. for a Premier League team at the bottom of, at the bottom of the Premier League, they're spending a lot of time in low blocks. They have a lot of time to essentially to practice sitting in against the top teams. If you're Lens, if you're PSV Eindhoven, if you're whoever, you're competing at the top of your respective league. You're not used to being sat in low blocks. So they can't come along and compact themselves in the way that a Burnley can and a Sheffield can, because they don't do that week in, week out. And I think we see the benefits of that in the Champions League, from the difference in the Premier League. And it's such a lovely reminder in many ways that we are still kind of able to do that. And it's understandable, and you kind of rationally understand in the Premier League when you're watching it. I understand we're a good team. Teams are sitting in against us. We need to just find a way through. And I hope that's still there when teams do actually step up a little bit. But actually, to see that play out in a game is a really nice feeling. To be like, okay,
mate, it's also objectively true. Like, Arsenal face the deepest line in Europe's top 5 leagues. That's an objective fact. And so, I mean, in general, you can understand the issues with central progression. And I think we sit here on a podcast trying to make everything better. That's essentially the point of us trying to talk on podcasts. But you can't ignore the basic fact that teams set up very differently against you. And, the one thing that I really enjoy is that in terms of transition at the top level, when we face elite teams won't low block against Arsenal.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I start to get excited, because you start to translate this type of performance into some of those bigger games, the Real Madrids, the Bayerns. They're not going to go and sit back into a low block.
Space.
Yep. Yeah, no matter how good you are, they don't. The big teams, they meet each other. And I just think, wow, this Arsenal team are they the best transition team in Europe? I'm trying to think of a better transition team.
It's hard to say that because we don't do it very often. But I think when we are allowed to transition,
well, think about it. We blow teams apart. Like, I mean, I'm struggling to find another team in Europeans' top 5 leagues that transition as effectively as Arsenal. We know we have the most effective out of possession team, but I've been trying to think about this lately, and maybe it's because of sample. We haven't seen the front line with enough time. We haven't seen enough sample of transition moments, period. I agree with you. It's just not how teams want to play against us, because you see what happens. But from an objective standpoint, can you find another front line that's more transition focused, or at least more efficient in the transition? Maybe you could argue City. You could definitely argue cities, but
it's hard to say. I think we need. This is why it's so exciting to be advancing in this competition. Is because then we can, like, a lot of these questions that we have, that we bring up on the podcast and stuff, we can begin to answer them against the top teams. Are we at that level? Are we really there? And I think we are. It's just you need to get to those competitions and start to see yourself against those teams. Let's talk individuals. I want to start with Tomiyasu, who I thought had a fantastic. I would still give him the man of the match. Yeah. I thought Tomiyasu's first half was
incredible,
maybe the best I've ever seen him play for Arsenal. I thought he was going both ways. I thought he was absolutely sensational. Obviously, he got 2 assists, but he was defensively, that clearance, that ball for Martinelli. I think that might have been for his goal.
The crossfield switch,
which I know people it looks like a clearance, but he does spot him. You can see.
That's intentional. Look, maybe it's into space. It's intentional to put it there.
It's intentional to find Martinelli.
Yeah.
Whether he intends that exact fade on the pass, I don't know, but he executes it perfectly. Yeah. I just thought, and also surprised me so much, mate, with the overlap, which we've spoken about with Tomiyasu before, in terms of maybe not seeing that side of his game, but actually tonight, wow.
And you want him sold.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. For those who missed this, I posted a video on the different knock, essentially saying Tomiyasu. What did I say? Selling Tomiyasu. Let's talk. And at the end of the video, I went, I wouldn't sell Tomiyasu. But for the last 24 hours, everyone's going, ha, you'd sell Tomiyasu. No, I wouldn't. That's
I had
the point of the video.
I've been holding that in the whole time, but no, it was amazing. And look, we've seen the dominance of Tomiyasu. What really struck me was the crossing variety, mate. Like, we're talking, I think we glanced over it, and we're not talking about it enough, despite him overlapping. the technique to do at least the deep cross for me was special. The
Mm.
first one, he's kind of he's facing play. It's a pass that you would expect most Premier League footballers to make. I don't want
Yep.
to diminish it. He's got to have the intelligence to find him. But the second cross mate, that's special. That's
Yeah.
him picking his head up, finding the man, and purposefully putting it kind of in a deep area that is brilliant. I don't know. I thought on the day he was amazing, and he doesn't pick up his head enough in the final third, in my opinion.
Mhm.
So even when he does get to the final third, he's got his head down. He kind of does the pattern play. He will do the overlap if he can, but he's got such brilliant technique. I don't think he's as comfortable higher up the pitch, and he's just full of confidence right now. He's taking uh, form in terms of being in the squad and being important in the squad again. And I just think, wow, what a performance by him is. He offers an opportunity for Ben to kind of come in at
Mhm.
his own pace. And I know there's going to be some joking comments. Does Ben get in over Tomiyasu? But boy, that he is
Mate.
playing brilliantly. By the way, both are fullbacks. Hand on heart, Zinchenko was incredible again.
Yep. Yeah, I think the Tomiyasu one, especially the assist for Erdegaard, I didn't see it. I'm sat there with a television camera. I didn't see that pass, so for him to pick that out is incredible. Yeah, and yeah, I mean personally for me with Tomiyasu, just to finish up on him, I mean, if you're looking at Wolves this weekend, it will depend on whether you want to deal with Pedro Neto. That's a question. And the concern with Tomiyasu is always, well, can he sort of perform in the final third, and maybe against a different team, maybe who defended a different way, maybe he looked different. But I was really, really impressed. I love finding new dynamics to players, finding just little things you go, oh, you've never done that before.
Mm.
I saw that with Tomiyasu. See, let's touch on Zinchenko as well, who I thought was terrific.
Brilliant on the night. I think what I enjoy is when he's aggressive in his defensive actions. I find that there's times that he's definitely somebody that anticipates brilliantly, but I think at times sometimes he's overtly aggressive. And I'm going to make like kind of an opposite point to what people might think. It's very important for a fullback to be jumpy to their marker, right? It's very important to put the pressure. But one thing that's really key is that when you are going to be aggressive approaching your marker, you have to calm down in the follow through. You have to get there quick, but you don't actually have to tackle quick. And that's really important when you're defending a side like Zinchenko, who, by the way, comes in with massive amounts of space down in the channels. He doesn't always get that calculus correct. Currently, in the last couple of games, he's back. I think that there was a period at the beginning of the season where I thought he's been incredible defensively. And then there was about, I'd say, a 3 to 4 game period where, again, he struggled. But on the whole, this entire season, Zinchenko has been incredible defensively. And I think he doesn't get the praise enough for that because it is a weakness and
Mm-hmm.
was a weakness last season. But he's clearly worked on it. I thought he was punchy with the ball as usual. But I've always felt like he's been able to understand the positioning aspect with the ball. That was never an issue for me. And
Yeah.
he's even been very important in terms of some of the vertical staggering of the pivot that we've seen in previous performances. But just off the ball, he's been brilliant. And also aerially, I don't think people realize because he's small, he is one of the more aerially
Yeah,
dominant fullbacks.
his numbers are crazy if you look them up. The
Yeah.
social joins makes a good point here. He's finally worked out to play with Rice. I think actually it's the distances. I think he's understanding
Yeah.
when to come inside a little bit more, understanding when to remain wide, understanding when it's his time to move inside. I think last season there was a desire to impress, a desire to sort of show himself, which is fine. I think he's now sort of calmed down a little bit and sort of found himself in the sort of the fabric of the team.
Mhm.
And yeah, just that ability to choose when to come inside a bit more, when to stay wide. His defending, I've got a video coming out about this, but his defending numbers are through the charts from last season. So yeah, I think Zinchenko deserves a lot of credit. Gabriel this evening.
Just it's all summed up in really the
does he
video.
need to George, what does this guy need to do to be considered like top 5 centre backs in the Premier League? What does he need to do? I don't get it. What more can he do?
Okay, he is the definition of technical aesthetic bias. Gabriel looks awkward, therefore he must not be good. It's ridiculous. It's just a false equivalence. Gabriel is absolutely not just top 5, mate. Like I'd put him a little bit higher. Can you name multiple left-footed left center backs that have been this consistent since last year? Okay,
For left footers, he's the best in the league. But
well,
it's overall centre backs.
of course, and I would argue. Look, I love Nathan Ake. I think he's in the conversation there. But then
He's a
I
left back,
start
really.
Well,
For Pep.
for Pep, sure, and he's at least in the conversation. But then I start to think across Europe, are there very many that have had the consistency with which he's been able to have? No. And look, this is a Gabriel game. Transition, physical side.
Yeah.
He's up for the fight. It's his perfect type of game. So it's not just a commentary on the night, but it's been basically since the beginning of last season. And I would argue even last season, he was our most consistent center back. Saliba gave us probably our best peak performance at a time, but Gabriel was more consistent than Saliba last season, and it's not as though he's faltered in this season. So I'm with you. He was colossal, and I just think Saliba was not from a fault of his own, quiet today, and there was other people that took on the responsibility, but he doesn't need to be the constant player that steps out and solves things for us. He's so important in our build-up, but I just thought he did a brilliant job about letting others to shine and then impose himself in moments when he needed to. And you know why I really like that from William Saliba? It's experience, mate. You don't have to be the star of the show in all moments. And I love that because it produces a more controlled performance. It produces more aura defining performance, if you really want to talk about it like that. The experience to not be the one to dribble and really let others shine when they need to is just a humbleness I didn't think he had, or at least he could have this young. It's very difficult, and I just thought it was brilliant from both of them. The entire team's going to get glowing praise, but I just thought he was arguably maybe one of the more quieter defenders on the night, and that's ironic.
Yeah, I think I saw a few chats about Wahi. I think that was slightly overplayed.
Wahi was brilliant on the night.
The people want some halftime reaction, George. We can't keep up with the where was it?
The demand.
We can't keep up with the content demand, mate. I've got a couple of things I want to talk to you about. So I won't run through the entire team, although we absolutely could. Anything from the midfield? Well, we should talk about Havertz. We should 100% talk about Havertz.
You have to. It's his best individual performance that we've seen so far, and I think
swagger, mate. Swagger.
You know what it was for me? It was that moment in the corner. Look, we can talk about the goal. It's brilliant that he got it. I don't think that that's necessarily something mind blowing that we haven't seen Havertz do. It's again another example of him getting in. I don't know if I'm looking quite as dapper. But
Milo Haynes says, "Can George give us an in-depth analysis of how he gets his hair that fresh? Also looking very dapper in that tan jacket." George, the people are loving it. Sorry.
I'm honored. Thank you. But no, I think in terms of Havertz, I think he's made that movement before, similar to kind of his last goal. Like the movements he's made, he's just finishing them here. The one thing I wanted to highlight was that moment in the corner, that brilliant bit of invention with the dribble. That's him on confidence. And look, if you were to basically have him receive in space, he would go forward in this game. And I'm just interested to see where the confidence takes him. I don't think that we can go much more beyond that. It was his best individual performance. Still something that you probably want him to still take more influence, at least in a passing sense. He's got that ability. He's got that passing authority. We still haven't quite seen that, but he's taking baby steps. And all you can ask is basically for that.
Yep. I mean, even just the pass to play Martinelli, and I think before he has a shot that goes to Saka before his goal, it's just perfectly weighted. He's not trying to. It's not Hollywood ball. He's just calm in the final third, plays the right pass, and that can't be underrated. I think with Havertz, I'm a massive believer personally in the idea of like what is in the micro is in the macro, what is in the macro is in the micro. You can extrapolate out, and you can get obviously accused of over analysis. But I do believe that actually, if you look really close at some things, they can often explain really large concepts. And I just watched Havertz in the warm up, and he just had a bit of a swagger, and I was like, that's it. All he needs is that just slight swing of the shoulders. You could see his chest puffed out a little bit, and you think that's one moment. But if that can translate to a wider thing, if Havertz can really puff his chest out and go, do you know what, I've arrived. What is that? 3 goals in 4 games for club and country or something like that? Something along those lines. So yeah, I was really pleased with him. I thought Odegaard had a decent game. Wasn't at his absolute best, but I thought he had a pretty good game. And Rice can't pass the ball, mate. So,
mate, there's a period.
That's the problem. Declan Rice can't pass the ball.
There's a period, and that's good doing the rounds. Yeah, when he does a line-breaking pass and then 2 tackles within the span of maybe 15
pass the ball,
seconds.
Mate. He can't pass the ball. So
unicorn. He's not progressive.
Not progressive. He's a clod-hopping English CDM. He's like the next Charlie Adam. Let's do Jesus, man. I text my mate sort of around halftime saying when Jesus is at his absolute peak, there are 3 or 4 Arsenal players in the Emirates era that we've seen that are better than him. And I like when he's absolutely
that's a big claim.
Like I'm putting Sanchez maybe above him. I'm probably putting Ozil above him. You know, in like picture, you know, Ozil in his Leicester game or Sanchez against United or whatever you want to put there. But Jesus at his absolute peak, the guy is ridiculous. The ability to turn, the ability to spot movement, the ability to the calmness in the box. Like the problem with Jesus is he's so streaky and he's kind of, I think he's almost so far on that ability to see the game so quickly. It's like, this is such a weird example, but go with me. You're trying to swat a fly. You know, flies can see they've seen like 1,000 frames per second or something. They've like worked out that basically if you go really slowly, they think it's moving slower. But if you go really quickly, they can move because they're seeing things a lot quicker than you can. Jesus, his football feels like it's in like 100 frames per second and we're all watching in 60, which sometimes works against him. But when he's on his A game, when he's physically there, he sees things so much quicker than everyone else. I love that guy. I love him.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I'd go as strong in the whole of Arsenal history, but
no, in the Emirates era.
Oh, in the Emirates era. Yeah, I don't know. Like, look, even then,
do not misquote because that would be a huge shout. Emirates era.
True.
Emirates
even
era.
in the Emirates, you know what? Look, I just want to talk about the brilliance of him in terms of him returning from injury. I think this was the most dominant I've seen him since injury, at least. And that's super exciting. I saw a lot of really poor claims on the timeline that he's lost a yard of pace, that he looks fat or something. And, you know, yeah, you know, it's ridiculous, right? And he looked dominant. He looks strong. And you know what? When Jesus is fainting, he's confident. Like when Jesus is able to feint with people in front of him, you know he's in the mood. And I just think that on the broad spectrum, Jesus is a Champions League killer, no matter what. There is very few people that have his record, by the way, in the Champions League, and there's just very few people that perform in that way. He's such a spontaneous footballer, and he's a fun footballer, but that spontaneity really lends itself to a European night. You know, in terms of not just the space that you get afforded, but it's for the occasion. And like he's an entertainer. And what's the biggest entertaining stage? The Champions League.
Yeah.
And so I just think he is brilliant. And I think today, what I really enjoyed, by the way, mate, he's going up against Kevin Danzo, who is no slouch.
Nope.
And he is holding the ball, who I thought was brilliant on the day, but he could only do so much. And I think that's what I took away. That was brilliant. I've seen Jesus kind of outmuscle people that are bigger than him. I've seen that. But to see such a dominant player look poor, it's the sign of a really good player. And he's in form, which is what we need going into Christmas.
Big time, especially with that Fabio Vieira. We could discuss Saka and Martinelli, but they're just becoming jokes, aren't they? So we'll move on from that because I want to talk about.
Can we? Can I just have one thing? Like Bukayo Saka,
you can go, but we haven't got much time, so be quick.
Okay, 7 goals in 5 games. Laughable that people question his European heritage. In terms of actually Bukayo Saka himself, because he set a record, he's only the 3rd player from 2003-04 onwards to both score and assist in 3 consecutive home games after Karim Benzema and Luis Suarez. Those aren't light names, mate. And he's 22. Like, it's ridiculous. I had to get that in there because look, Martinelli's brilliant. He's got a goal. He's been great. But come on, what else more can you say about him? He's special. He's a special kid.
He made out of the Brandon Williams debates.
What is he on right now? 17 goal and assists before Christmas? Are we going to talk about his numbers? Yeah. Like, I know we're laughing and we like shake our head, but when has he been this efficient, mate? He could legitimately come into Christmas on 20 to 25 goals and assists in the season. Do you know how crazy that is? He's on 17. Why don't we prop this up? Why aren't fans sitting there saying, "Oh my God"? Is it because I don't know, Bukayo Saka has this image of being a really nice guy. Why is nobody talking about the efficiency in his numbers this season? It's ridiculous.
Is it 7 goals and assists in five Champions League matches?
Yes. and it's 17 goals and assists in the season. Like, why
This is
isn't
like
nobody
Messi
speaking about
numbers. This is Messi numbers.
It's ridiculous. Look, of course he's
yeah.
got to carry this through, yada yada. But come on, I don't understand it. And he's still. It could be argued he's left goals on the pitch this season.
100%.
It's ridiculous.
100%. Very briefly, because I don't want to linger on it too long with the Lewis Skelly and Wanyeri thing. I think people were disappointed not to see them, which I understand. I think it's a kind of misunderstanding of Arteta as a coach. Like, Arteta is until he is absolutely guaranteed, and even then, I'm not saying I guarantee they don't start, but I'm pretty sure he starts with a strong team against who we're playing. Is it PSV away? He'll start with a strong team. Guaranteed.
I don't get it. Objectively here, it's the one thing that I'm going to say, because then I want to move on to the positives. It is objectively ridiculous, mate. It's 5-0. Why bring them into the Champions League squad if you're not going to use them? There's Mario Cozier-Dewberry, there's Charles Sajo Jr., who deserve places ahead of Miles and Ethan, if you're going to be fair. If you're gonna want to give a Champions League experience, quote unquote, to players that, by the way, have come to the Emirates before, have seen this before, I think that those are two players that would have deserved it. If you're going to say, let's make up the numbers, we need to make up the numbers from an academy sense. But if you're going to do that, then at what point do you bring them on? Because you've clearly deemed them good enough to make the bench. Like, that's no mean feat. Yeah. Like, the entire point of that is because you believe they're ready to be introduced.
Yeah, I mean, my only thing is we don't know the future, and it might be the case that they're starting next week, and it was his way of saying, right, come in and you have this experience on the bench. I don't know. I mean, but broadly, we can say what we know over the 4 years.
Not even for graveyard minutes, mate. For 10 minutes, 6-0 up,
mate. We've spoken about this before, right? Like, you know, Arteta is clearly a coach who is extremely conservative with young players. That is absolutely a fact.
He could be worse than Pep, you know, if you really think about it. You know,
that is a fact, of course. However, with this specific case this evening, it will depend on the final game.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do some questions. If you have anything in the comments, then please let us know, because we want to get to
as you're finding it, mate. Kiwior looks smart. It's just, he's a serious player, mate. And you know what? He deserved minutes tonight. So did Reece Nelson. The people that came on, let's get it right. Like, they all deserved minutes, but my goodness, Kiwior, I just want that boy to play more. The way that he was receiving the ball and the confidence to play punchy passes between the lines was brilliant. And I just think he's got a level of calmness about him that is brilliant, because I think that when you pair him with somebody like Gabriel, who's a more aggressive center back, and then you pair him maybe with kind of other people like Zinchenko, who are aggressive as well, I think he's a really good complement there. And I love the way that we had him in that kind of staggered pivot along with Declan Rice. He was really finding some smart positions.
Grumpy Doctor says, can we get to the biggest issue? We need to talk about Ben White and his tanning bed.
I hear, isn't there something like Newcastle where you guys love your tans down there?
What? No comment. Can we get to, Ben White's hair is questionable at the minute. Sean Hawks says, question, why didn't Ramsdale, the keeper that got us into the Champions League, get 45 tonight? I think it's the same reason Miles Lewis-Skelly and Ethan Wanyeri don't get on. It's the same reason Amari Cozier-Dewberry sat on the bench against Wolves at 4-0, don't get on. And I'll tell you what, it's Mikel Arteta. The thing is, when you are that intense and when you are able to produce a team that it can do what we saw tonight, there's going to be a drop off. Something I love is was a philosopher guy called Alain de Botton, and he talks about development of people, and he always talks about there is always a downside. If you see someone who's really, really developed in a certain area, maybe they're really, really smart, academically smart at one thing, they're gonna be poor at something else. They'll be socially really awkward or whatever it is. That there's going to be some kind of downside, and I think it's really, really clear with Arteta. He is so intense, so keen to win, so aggressive in how he attacks games, so ruthless in how he attacks situations, that the downside is going to be He's not going to be kind with those types of young players. It's just not going to happen. He's not going to do sentimentality minutes for Ramsdale. He's just not going to do that. So
yeah,
I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just trying to explain why didn't Ramsdale get 45 tonight.
well, I mean,
That's my
PSV would
sense.
be ridiculous. Again, I have to be objective. Like, he
Ramsdale's
has to
got to
play.
start.
He's got to start against PSV, and like, I could understand it, by the way, in this match, because we technically didn't qualify going into the match. I could understand if you have your first choice keeper, you're not going to make a change, on a potentially important day that it could have gone sideways. Like, no one has the foresight that we were going to do what we were going to do. So it was objectively a tough game. I get that, but even the switch at 45 minutes would have been tough. But if we don't see him during PSV, difficult questions.
Question: are we starting to see that Rolls-Royce all phases midfielder and Havertz that we were talking about earlier in the season? George, what are your thoughts on Havertz's potential right now? I'm not sure if that's relating to. Oh, okay. The first one is relating to Havertz. Okay, go on.
I don't know if I see an all phases midfielder.
No, neither do I.
I don't. I really disagree with that statement. But I think we definitely are seeing the flowerings of what he could bring as a second striker. I've always felt that Kai Havertz has good potential in a specific role, and I think, again, as I've said on this channel, he's not ready for the current version of Arsenal. He's ready for the version of Arsenal that buys a backboard number 9 that we can play off of. And by the way, Mikel's comments earlier in the week kind of prove that he's not somebody that they would prefer receiving back to goal. It's somebody that they would like facing the game in front of them. Sorry, not Mikel's. I think it was Ornstein's comments, to be fair.
Yes, sorry.
But I just think he's a very specific player for a specific way of playing, which we could absolutely evolve into. But I think he's just taking steps right now, and we can't overinflate, because objectively he hasn't been worth what we paid for, but that doesn't mean that he won't be in the future. And just objectively, it was his best performance today. So how are you going to go and critique that? It's his individually his best performance that he's played.
Sway says, chances of winning the whole thing. I think our near pragmatic defending suits it. Timber and Partey would also be a huge boost against Villa. Yeah, this is without Timber and Partey, mate.
I was hinting at it in terms of the whole reason I wanted to bring up earlier in the instant reaction in terms of the transition question and the out of possession was exactly for this question. When you talk about Champions League champions, what do they have to be? Absolutely resolute in defense, and they have to be killers in transition. It's why I'm wondering, we have a serious opportunity to do something in this competition. And of course, we can speak of the players that we're missing. And it's true, Timber and Partey are huge to this. Can you imagine that we're facing a big boy and we need to become more defensively solid? We have the ability to become more efficient in transition. It's all there. It's set up. We're definitely a team that has been worth, at minimum, the semifinals. I'm not afraid to say it. There is a minimum expectation for me for us to reach the semis. And then at that point, anything can happen. So I think we've put ourselves in a position to do it. I think we're worthy of the quality to do it. Will we do it, and are we favorites? No, I wouldn't put that quite on us yet.
Yeah, I've said before, I want us to give a good account of ourselves, and I think the capacity of this team is a final, but giving a good account of yourselves could mean a brilliant quarterfinal exit to Real Madrid. I don't know what that looks like. I just want to give it. I want us to give it a good account of ourselves. I think let's do some closing statements. I do want to just briefly touch on this because it was something actually the commentator said. I think we forget this is also Mikel's first Champions League campaign as manager. To win the group with a game spare, 1 loss and 4 or 5 wins. It's an incredible debut campaign. It's an incredible debut campaign, and I think we are kind of talked about this before. This concept of the Overton window, where things just shift in your mind because he's so brilliant. We kind of just shift our expectations and forget that this is a guy who is barely into his 40s, who's still in his first managerial job, who is getting that football out of our players, who has, come through so many question marks and managed to answer them in ways that other managers simply don't. And the problem is because we have our expectations here, we expect everyone to meet them. And until they get there, we just think, well, you're rubbish. He's just been consistently doing this year on year. And there's been question marks every single time because there's always going to be the gap of, can you win the Champions League? Can you win the Premier League? Until he gets to there and he answers it, people still won't give him his flowers. Guys, he's come from here. Give this guy his flowers, man. He is an incredible coach, and we are so lucky to have him. And I look at that team tonight, and we're talking about the individuals as we should. Incredible performances: Jesus, Havertz, Tomiyasu, whoever you want to talk about. But Mikel Arteta has put this team together in his first managerial job at 41, 42 years of age.
Best Arsenal manager win percentage in over 200 games. And that's not behind light names. It's just, look, it's ridiculous. There's not much, for as much as I talk about frustration at some decisions with Mikel, he's a generational mind in terms of how he views the game. And I think that he's gotten us to a position where we're sitting here talking about competing with Bayern, mate. In the span of 2 years, we've gone from people jokingly laughing at us to having the team that forces oppositions into the deepest line in the Europeans' top 5 leagues. We've talked about now becoming the team to set a Champions League record in their Champions League debut with him as manager. These aren't small things.
This time last year, we were talking about Antonio Conte's Spurs as going above us.
Well, exactly. And so, I just think sometimes there's perspective about understanding the distance that you traveled. And a lot of people just say, well, I only care about the destination, not the journey. And
exactly.
They've got
that's what that is. And it's not recognizing
the gap. Yeah. And I think it's brilliant in general. This team is very fun. I think people forgot how potent we can be. And this was just a timely reminder to not just the rivals, but even our fans, mate, because look, there's justifiably reasons for us to want to improve in the attacking efficiency of the team. But I think this was a timely reminder that when we do get a chance, we can be incredibly efficient. And when we do put our minds to it, we absolutely can be efficient. And it's worth noting the first time this front 5 have ever played again, and it's been confirmed in the comments, they haven't. The front 3 have played together. The midfield has played together, but together as a unanimous front 5, they have not played a single minute together. So it's brilliant. There's nothing more to say. It was a fun night. It was a night of records. It was a night of reminding Europe who we are, a night of reminding Arsenal fans the attacking potency and potential of this team. And let's just focus on getting our boys back and taking it game by game, because top of the league, top of the group, in fashion, by the way, is no mean feat.
Bukayo Saka, most goals and assists in this season's UEFA Champions League.
Mate, but this is why I'm saying, why isn't Bukayo Saka being talked about? These are incredible numbers. They're not minuscule. They're not just like an Arsenal fan getting excited and getting an emotional.
No,
it's ridiculous. It's objectively ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, it's incredible. But yeah, we're through to the final round. To the next round. Maybe the final round soon to come. Wolves on Saturday. Thank you all for joining us. Really appreciate that. If you haven't liked already, please do like the video. Please subscribe to the Cannon Podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with another full podcast. And yeah, the season goes on. Pleasure, George. Thank you, sir.
Pleasure as always, guys. Hope everybody enjoyed that performance tonight.
See you guys. Bye-bye.